Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Morgan Latif Spotlight Sessions. I'm Leo, one of the consultants here at Morgan Latif. Today I had the pleasure of speaking with Valeria Rais. Valeria brings over 20 years of experience from an HR and people perspective across both service and manufacturing environments. We had a really interesting discussion about the definition and the role of DE&I within the business context. We spoke about the importance of leaders establishing the right inclusive culture, as well as the evolving role that AI will play in the topic of DE&I moving forward. So a really insightful discussion. I took a lot of learnings from the conversation. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Valeria, good morning, and thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Leo. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm very excited for the discussion today. We've of course had a brief bit of dialogue around some of the topics that we're going to be diving into later this morning. But yeah, I mean, before we get started and we dive into today's big topics, I suppose it'd be great, Valeria, if you could maybe share a short introduction into you, your personal journey, where you are at the moment in a professional context, and maybe paint the picture of Valeria.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to start by saying that I am Italian, and I am, although I've been, living and working abroad quite extensively during what is now almost 25 years of, working life, of which 23 actually in HR and people related jobs. And then for 2 years, I've been privileged to also lead a business in Spain, which drove me to move. And so I relocated. I had to learn a new language. I think that was one of my probably biggest accomplishments from a professional standpoint, which helped me confirm myself in my absolute love for people in HR, but at the same time also, see the world through new lenses as well, and hopefully become a better people leader as well.
Take me back to the beginning of your career. I mean, what drew you to HR? What drew you to leadership? You said 23 years of it now spent on the people side of business. What was the driver at the very beginning?
I think since I was a kid, I've always been really ticked by anything that has to do with, understanding the psychology and personalities of people, what is coming from the inside of people that really motivates them and, inspires them to moving on, And so I started my studies in law. I think that there is a little bit of a legacy from my father because he is a policeman. He's been a policeman all his career. And so I initially studied law, but then very quickly I understood that probably becoming a lawyer or a judge going to court, it was not really my cup of tea. And so I moved more towards the organization and really a business what I liked the most to join, and so I did. So I had my master's degrees in organizational science, and that is where I actually joined the first company already in HR. That was organizational design and development initially. And so probably what that gave me like an initial footprint on more the organizational side of things, and how you make sure you place the right people in the right place, but first of all that you design the right places for the right people, and because that is actually something that I kept along the way, mostly working in growing environments, and really an experience that is balanced between manufacturing and services. Um, um, yeah, and technology, so a little bit of everything really, but always or mostly again from the people side of things.
And you've worn a number of different hats. Your career has clearly evolved throughout that time. You've spent time in some leading organizations in various different roles. How do you feel that your perspective on these positions, or your perspective on diversity, DE&I, which I suppose is a big topic for us in the podcast today, how has that evolved?
Thank you. I think this is a great question, Leo, because I mean, during my experience, I've always thought about diversity in a very wide sense, meaning I wouldn't limit it to gender or ethnicity or stuff like that. You know, even sexual orientation is really not relevant. The type of diversity, the big thing and the magic really comes from putting together as much diversity as you possibly can and then trying to leverage it at best within the organization. I think today we still talk a lot about gender, especially in Europe, whilst in the US, maybe they are more focused on, ethnicity and skin color and stuff like that. But then, what you realize is that, the world is different outside, it's very diverse, and therefore that is a fact. That is what we say, right? So diversity is a fact, and making sure we can get the best out of every world, that is the real challenge in a company. And especially today, I would say more than any other type of diversity, what I find extremely fascinating and challenging is the generation diversity, because we happen to have more, most often we happen to have leaders, well, like myself, like we are either, boomers or generation X. Type of people, and then cohabiting in the same workplace, in the same office, many times with Generation Z, okay, and artificial intelligence native type of people, and we happen to literally speak different languages. Okay, so now I guess one of the main challenges for business leaders is really to understand how we can best leverage and trust each other, whilst working, and making sure we really, learn what is necessary, what is an advantage, what can be an advantage for for all generations that we have in the workplace.
And how do you do that? I mean, how can businesses better address that challenge? We speak about diversity. It's not just gender. I think generational diversity and neurodivergence is a really interesting one that we're starting to speak about more. But how can businesses actually address these challenges and work in the right ways to make sure that people from these different backgrounds are still working towards a common goal? They're feeling valued within the business context.
Yeah, I think it, once again, Leo, it goes down to culture. Okay, so what we are trying to do, when I say trying, because of course everything is an experiment as we speak, because everything is happening at the same time, right? So we have lots of moving pieces, and what we are trying to do is to in a way, close our eyes, take a breath, and trust, especially, even very talented people, regardless of their age or, again, gender or where they come from or, state of origin, in leading and co-leading strategic work streams and initiatives. Okay. We hope that by doing so, we really, on one side, put all generations together in the same room, and so that we can make sure that every strategic or key initiative is fueled by the contributions from such different generations and professional profiles and skills, really. Okay. We kind of started from assuming that we, and when I mean we, like people from our generation, will not get AI as quickly as other people can. And so we are, allowing those people to teach us and to, to take us by the hand and see what we can do. Of course, safety and security and security is very important when it comes to this, new technologies and new opportunities, but also, a change in the way we think of work. Right. So we want to plan, do, check, act. Well, that is not really the way that AI works. So I guess there is a little of that, that leap change that we need to embrace and to accept. First of all, mentally, and to say, it will be an iterative process. So we will try and try again and try again. And when we're happy with the results, we will move on. Okay. So it's really, I guess, a different way of looking at things. And that's why I said it begins and ends with culture.
And it's always a work in progress also, right? And I think we've made a lot of progress, but there are still certain persisting disparities. What are you seeing as the biggest challenges that still need to be addressed, more broadly speaking, when we talk about this topic?
I think this one is really very big. So around now this generation gap that we have in organizations, even more so than gender gap, I would say. And that leads me to maybe one comment that I had in mind that I think can be maybe worth sharing about, it's about who you are. And I think a little bit of that inner voice that everyone has, more than the gender, the generation, the origin, etc. So to me, I've never been a fan of establishing a certain percentage or number of X minorities that we want to have in organizations, mostly because I'm not a fan of minorities as a concept. Okay. I've always thought of myself, like looking back, I also have, a physical disability. But I think I've never thought of myself like a woman or a person with disabilities or someone coming from Sardinia, so like a less, if you like, developed area of Italy or Europe or the world. The way I've always thought of myself is I am a talented person who wants to accomplish something, and I thought, even when I was a kid, that was the inner voice that went through my head. And I think that is, in a way, a winning attitude that is probably more effective than thinking in percentages, and I need to have X, Y, Z number of women or people with disabilities in my organization.
I suppose it's fair to say that that's maybe quite a unique and quite an admirable perspective to have on things, but is maybe not the case for those minorities that maybe feel that they have less advantage or less opportunity when it comes to career progression, leadership, representation. What advice would you give to those people who maybe don't have the same natural, I suppose, perspective and self-image as you've just shared with us there, that are still seeking to have the same opportunity and success within their professional lives?
Yeah, and again, I think it really starts with a positive mindset, and without a positive mindset, honestly, well, I'm not sure anyone can get anywhere in life. Okay, so that is a little bit of a given, I'm afraid. At the same time, I've recently come across an interesting podcast from a number of women leaders, and I actually agreed with them on one point. So people, especially at the beginning of their career, that is the biggest leap that you can take, right? So when you are starting from 0 to 1 is always, the biggest leap that you can make. And so probably an eye on choosing the company or the organization rather than choosing the job per se, especially at the beginning of their career. Because we've seen that most people struggle to take their say their first managerial role, something with some responsibility and visibility as well. So probably an advice from me would be to to people really facing the labor market for the first time, to say, look, make sure you choose your first employer and even the second employer, maybe more than you choose your first job. Okay, because I mean, really, intercepting the right organization, one that is culturally open, one that is seeking for the diversity, one that is ready to invest on you in terms of your opportunities, that has a culture that is open, that really values diversity, is very different than not. Yeah, so that will give you a
Yeah.
very different opportunities by default.
And I suppose from the lens of a recruiter like myself, I'm very interested to understand how businesses can, on the flip side, create the right culture, create the right image to then attract those candidates that might be looking for a business rather than a specific role. Now, what advice or steps would you recommend that these businesses can take in attracting the right talent at not only the early level, but also higher up in a business?
Yeah, I think, in the last 25 years, I think companies worldwide have made quite some progress. So, in terms of not only doing the right things, but also showing they are doing and saying they are doing the right things. Okay. So between, let's say, if I was at the beginning of my career and I had to choose my first employer now, knowing what I know now, I would definitely look for like a company that is regularly surveying amongst employees about their voice, what they are happy with, what they are not happy with. I would rather choose an employer that does it rather than an employer that doesn't do that. Yeah.
Mm.
And then, what actions have been taken in the last series of years, acting specifically upon employee feedback. What are the initiatives or the employee resource groups that companies are promoting is the word, so not only allowing but promoting. Okay. And what are the sustainability efforts that the organization is making, because I think, again, sustainability, like diversity, is another of the big things that we have nowadays. And again, there's many ways in which we can, relate to sustainability. It is definitely a trigger for better enterprise valuation. So being very, very financially driven, it also a good thing to do. And probably for me is mainly a good thing to do. And so it is also a big trigger for talent attraction, especially when it comes to Gen Zers. And, but mostly when it comes to people of with good values and nice people that you would like to work with. So to me is about spotting in companies the signals of the right behavior, that you want to be part of.
One of the topics that I've been speaking a lot about lately is bias, stereotypes, and I suppose this representation, again, to link it back to a talent perspective, both with onboarding new people to the business, but the existing pool of people within a company. How do you address these biases and stereotypes? I know that there are a lot of companies out there with certain quotas when it comes to recruitment. You've been quite open in saying that you don't see much value in that, and ultimately you want to get the best people through the door and not need to have such quotas. How do you address it? These sometimes unconscious biases also.
Yeah, well, mostly via training, as you can imagine, and as you can expect, a training that is very much about talking about stuff. So we've organized very extensively, especially in 24. In the end of 23 and then 24, extensively throughout EMEA, quite some training opportunities and learning opportunities for all our people. I mean, starting with the managers, but really then, extending it to everyone else in the organization, both, remote, virtual, in person, a little bit of everything, to first of all allow people to have their, inner thoughts emerge and talk about them, because they are, so when it comes to bias, the tricky thing about biases is that we all have them, and we can only be more or less aware of our biases. And once we are aware, then hopefully we can minimize those in the actions we actually make, okay, and take. So we've agreed within the organization I'm working at the moment that we'd rather ask the person than make the decision in their place, okay? Because many, many times, Leo, one of the ways I've seen bias materialize and become prejudice in my working experience has been, especially for hiring managers or people managers making a promotion decision, making the decision in the place of the person rather than asking them. But, well, she's just had her baby, so maybe this is not the right time for her to be promoted. And I mean, my reaction would just be ask her. I mean, don't make the decision for her, just ask her or ask him. Because I mean, today is exactly the same place when a man just had their baby. I mean, it's the same. Or not, or they want to make a family, or whatever, they want to get married, or they want to have a partnership. So just be more open, have that direct conversation, and ask directly the question to the person in question.
Yeah, for sure. I think that open communication is only going to make people happier on both sides, and removes that level of uncertainty. I suppose it can also help with things like succession planning and making sure, like you said earlier, the right people are in the right positions. You talk about this role within hiring managers and leadership. How do you feel that leadership really can influence the right environment, this inclusive environment amongst all team members, because taking it outside of an HR's role, as you're clearly very heavily involved yourself, but how do you make sure that that is ingrained within the business? And we talk about the topic of maybe diversity fatigue. Yes, it looks good on a company website and it looks good to have it as one of the values on the wall, but really to ingrain that, what do you see as the key steps in getting there?
Well, as much as I don't like it, I fear it is still the case that either something starts from the top or it will never really, start in organizations. And so the leaders to walk the talk are really absolutely vital to anything. Yeah. So including diversity and inclusion. And in fact, I mean, at times I have to say maybe I've been lucky, but at times whenever I saw or I have experienced, leaders not really walking the talk, especially when it came to inclusion, that also became an issue, very quickly within the organization. And again, I've been privileged to either, be part of managing that issue and resolving that issue, or really experiencing, a call to action from even higher leadership to step into the topic without letting it go. Because one discriminative behavior that is not addressed can really have a disproportionate effect on reputation and culture, within the organization, especially against leadership. So I think that was a big motivator for people to really take action and make sure that the topic was addressed.
One of the topics that we spoke about before the recording today is how that then changes with businesses of different size. I suppose you've had the privilege of working within best-in-class organizations, large businesses, but when you transfer that over to smaller businesses with maybe less infrastructure, less tools to implement these types of things, what advice would you give?
I think there, like business communities, especially function communities, can be of great help, and that goes back to another advice that I would give to people for, looking for the best job, which is around networking. We can get really a lot of value out of our network of people from, diverse background and diverse size of organizations, generation, gender, and what have you. Okay. I mean, I've been leveraging this big time in my career. I still am, especially because, there is one tricky thing about network, and is that either you nurture it every day or when you need it, it will be late. Okay, so you'd better start, really making a lot of friends in the in organizations, and the more diverse, the better, so that when no matter what size the organization you are in today is, you will always have a large community to reach out to for inspiration, advice, help, partnership. And again, I mean, I'm doing this all the time with my teams. We are calling out to other HR teams in other companies of different size, different industries, because that's very inspiring and we can learn from each other.
Looking forward, what do you think the future holds for DE&I? How do you see it evolving?
I think I see it becoming more and more ingrained in the company cultures. and widening. So again, we will add more and more meanings to diversity. And technology will help us do that. The technology will give us new meanings to it, and especially AI will for sure. Very soon we will have to find a way to bring all this richness together and make sure we take the best out of it.
How do you think AI is going to impact things?
I hope in a very positive way. I'm personally like a big fan of AI because I think it will allow talented people to focus on more added value activity rather than stupid things that a machine can do. Yeah. So that human beings can focus on what is humanly possible, and the machine can do what is for machines. Okay. So I don't see, honestly, I can only see a betterment in this type of innovation because really I can see people focusing on more human activities than machine-like activities.
Yeah, we will wait and see. I mean, AI is evolving every day, and I think firstly to make sure that we're keeping up to date with it. But yeah, I'm super interested to understand how that's going to impact things on these kinds of topics. And yeah, it's been a really interesting discussion, Valeria. I want to thank you for your time. I've learned a lot, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Leo. It was my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot.